The mysterious Ecocide collapse of Easter Island never really happened. The people of Rapa Nui, or Easter Island, were not the instruments of their own demise, according to a new research. In a comprehensive new study, researchers found that the population of the monument carvers could not possibly have been big enough to collapse under the demands placed on their environment, as has previously been suggested. The myth of this so-called Rapa Nui ecocide, held up for decades as a cautionary tale about overexploitation of natural resources, should be firmly regulated to the bin of outdated theories, scientists now say. This finding is just the latest in a mounting body of evidence that the Pacific Islanders' population's decline had nothing to do with their way of life. In fact, the collapse so soon after European contact in the 1700s probably had more to do with the slave trade and forced migration and introduced pathogens. The finding was based on an analysis of the rock gardens found in Rapa Nui, in which the islanders grew their food. The team, led by archaeologist Dylan Davis of Columbia Climate School, conducted a new satellite survey of the sites and found that the number of these gardens could not have supported a population large enough to collapse under its own weight. This shows that the population could never have been as big as some of the previous estimates, Davis says. The lesson is the opposite of the collapse theory. People were able to be very resilient in the face of limited resources by modifying the environment in a way that helped. According to the ecocide theory, popularized by American researcher and historian Jared Diamond, the population of thousands of Pacific Islanders once lived in Rapa Nui. In Diamond's version of events, this native population cut down all the trees, which left the fertile soil vulnerable to erosion. This meant that they could not grow as much food, so they started starving, resorting to war, cannibalism, and ultimately collapse. More and more, however, scientists have been discovering that the Rapa Nui people were a lot more resilient and resourceful than the collapse narrative suggests. In addition to sweet potatoes grown in their rock gardens, the islanders ate seafood, and more evidence suggests that they were still there on the island, living quietly, quite happily after the Europeans arrived. However, previous satellite surveys of the rock gardens seem to support the notion of a large population. Of the 164 square kilometers, that's 63 square mile area of the island, as much as 21.1 square kilometers was devoted to gardens, and the surveys found supported a possible population of up to 17,000 people. So it was much higher than the 3,000 or so reported by the first European visitors. Davis and his colleagues went about their survey in a highly methodical fashion and found support for their different interpretation. The island's rock gardens were built by strewing up the boulder-sized rocks over the low ground that would have been more protected from wind erosion and salt spray from the ocean. In the gaps between the rocks, the islanders planted their crops. And this could be difficult to differentiate from just a normal field of rocks, particularly on a rocky island. So the researchers spent 5 years carefully surveying rock gardens on the ground and cataloging their properties, such as higher levels of soil moisture and nitrogen. Then they trained the machine learning algorithm to identify these properties in satellite data recorded by shortwave infrared imaging. And there are natural rock outcrops all over the place that had been misidentified as rock gardens in the past. The shortwave imagery gives a different picture, Davis says. The results show that they only around 0.76 square kilometers of Rapa Nui were devoted to rock gardens, which alone could have supported a population of only about 2,000 people. Add other food sources, such as seafood already mentioned, and other crops such as bananas, and the island could only have sustained a population of around 3,000 people, the team thinks. This matches the number found by the first Europeans in 1722, suggesting that Rapa Nui people were living happily and substantially at the time, and by 1877 the population numbered just over only 100. The arithmetic seems pretty straightforward here. Our results help refine estimates of agricultural productivity, suggesting that previous estimates were between 5 and 20 times higher, the researchers say. This finding holds significant implications for estimates of population size and subsistence strategies of the Rapa Nui people before European contact. In future research, the researchers plan to use the data to model the Rapa Nui population more comprehensively, giving us a new tool for understanding their society and how it was destroyed. The research was published in Science Advances, and this is on Science Alert by Michelle Starr. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.